Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is HF Feb, and it's our last episode for this year of Hero February. But we'll be back next year with more Hero February, don't you worry. Anyway, enough goodbyes. Let's celebrate. We're about to talk about some fantastic Hero Factory MOCs to inspire you to build your own awesome Hero Factory MOCs. It may be the tail end of February, it may almost be over, but it doesn't mean you can't keep building Hero Factory villains and heroes. It's a fun thing to do. It's a nice thing to do during February because 'tis the season, but you can do it whenever you want. It's still a fun, good time. So let's get you some inspiration because it's never too late to build heroes and villains. Let's dive into a MOC by EMS, and this is the Cyborg Doctor. This is a really clever concept for a MOC. So I'll read the description here on Instagram. It says, the magical characteristics of Quattros Quasar wasn't enough for Aldous Witch. After his escape, he focused on fusing the Quasar with technology and animals, creating enormous, horrifying mutations capable of annihilation on a planetary level. That's awesome. Obviously, there was the wave of Hero Factory, which was Breakout, where all the villains broke out of prison. It's in the name, I suppose. But what I loved about that was the possibilities. Well, where do they go? What do they do? Do they reimagine themselves, reinvent themselves? Do they get a job in like social work or just work down at the local soup factory and they're like, hey, you know what? I've done some bad things. It's time to reform. That's a great idea for a MOC. One of the villains, it's like, I don't want to be a villain anymore. I want to work at a hospital, you know? But that's not what happened with Witch Doctor. They instead did some crazy, weird mutation science experiment stuff, and now they're all mutated and weird looking. That's a great idea. So yeah, how could you reimagine other villains within the Villain Factory lexicon of sets that exist, or your own unique villains? How did they break out of prison, and what sort of evil schemes did they get up to after they had a bit of time to mull over their evil plans and plan out cool stuff for when they escape? That's such a fun idea. Let's dive into this MOC, because what I love about it is the head design. Using the Matoro mask piece there and integrating it with the original Witch Doctor mask. That looks so cool. It really does look like crazy weird brain mutation veins and other horrific stuff, but it is totally within the vein of this MOC. It's really, really cool to see. So a lovely mask combo with two different masks, surprisingly simple but very effective. Something else I like about this is the inclusion of the CCBS Iron Man torso piece there, that printed piece. It works well because there's something about it to me that does look a little bit more cyborgy, which once again fits with this vibe. The fact that there's a lot more red introduced into the color scheme here, which, you know, the original Witch Doctor had a fair bit of red in him, but I guess white was more the primary color. White was more so the primary color. And I guess it still is with this MOC here, but there's certainly more larger concentrated areas of red on this revamp. And I think that works, because to me the red looks like exposed muscles or other like blood and other weird creepy things that would happen on the weird crazy experimental stuff that Witch Doctor's getting up to here. So I like that inclusion, but I also like the fact that there is the more technological elements on the printing there combined with some of those tubes as well, because then it does start to fit with that cyborg, mix of organic and robotic there. So it's a nice idea to use that printed piece there. When you can really take advantage of some of those printed pieces, it can do so much for a MOC. It's really cool to see. The finger design is also nice, using the Borok tusk tooth pieces there for the individual fingernails. It very much works with this aesthetic and still kind of fits with that jungle planet vibe, which was still a part of Witch Doctor, wasn't it? So nice to see that there. This is a really nice story reimagining of the character, but I think still fits with the original vibe. It's a really solid concept here. That Jam's Workshop has built a MOC called Duke, and he's the leader of B-Squadron. So you'll have to check the links in the description, because this guy's built a couple different teams of Hero Factory characters, and they look great. This, of course, is the leader of the B team, or the B squad, and he looks cool. He has some nice leader-ish qualities to him. The fact that he has multiple limbs, I think, is a very interesting design choice here, and looks really cool, especially with some of these shots where he's wielding multiple different guns and blades and weapons and things like that. It seems like someone who would be able to hold their own in combat, and I guess that can be one of very many qualities of a leader in that sense. But that's cool. I also like his weapon that is this interesting mallet of sorts. I don't know what you would specifically call that, but the brown and tan coloration to it there looks pretty cool. It's also nice with having that same color scheme being painted onto the Stormer mask here. I think that mask looks way better painted. I have a fun story. I think I've shared this before, so bear with me if I have, but it's certainly been a while since I've shared it. I remember I was building the Stormer 3.0 that mask originally came on, and I was speaking to Shadow Gear a couple days before, and he's like, "Oh, that mask I don't like it. It doesn't look good. It was really disappointing for him. He thought it'd be really awesome, and seeing it in person, he didn't like it." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to remain optimistic. Let's see what happens." And I was building Stormer 3.0, and I was about to put the head on, and then I had to head out of the house because I was going to see a theater show. And I was like, all right, here's what I'll do. I'm not going to even look at the mask. I'm not even going to put the head on. Let me go see this show. Then when I come back, I can put the mask on. And you know what? I don't believe Brendan. I reckon it's going to be super cool. I love how it looks. I'm so excited. And I came back from the show, and I was like, it was a great show. It was a Little Shop of Horrors. I had a good time, and I can't wait to put this mask on. And Brendan was right. It doesn't look very good. And I don't know. I haven't had a proper look at it again since those many years ago. I was still in high school at that time. Yeah, I don't know if it still holds up these days, but seeing it painted, it looks way cooler. So, if you're into painting, I think that's a good mask to paint because I think the white doesn't do it justice. I think putting a little bit more extra color on it makes it look cooler. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you guys liked Stormer 3.0's helmet more than I did. I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on that mask because, I don't know. I want to say it's cool today, but I don't know if I'm going to have a repeat of what I said before. I was like, no, I'll remain optimistic. It's going to be cool. I need to look at it again and be like, I was wrong. Still, it's nice, and it's the perfect choice for this character, I think. That rhino-like quality to it certainly lends itself to someone with multiple limbs and multiple weapons who seems like a run head-on into battlefield and do lots of fighting and beat people up kind of personality. I'm completely assuming that's what this guy's personality is based off how he looks. Could be totally wrong. I'm not sure of the backstory. There is backstory, but I do not have time to read that tonight. It's late, and I'm got to go to bed soon after recording this. But still, this is a fantastic MOC, and one of many other Hero Factory MOCs, so be sure to check those out in the description below, as well as the other MOCs too. There's a lot of good stuff here. Let's move over to a revamp of Bulk, and this is by Bionicle. So, I love Bulk. I think he's another underrated, awesome character, and I loved his look here from Breakout. That was one of my favorite looks for him. I think most of the heroes of Hero Factory really shone in the Breakout wave. That was definitely one of the better waves of Hero Factory. But nice to see a revamp here that still pays a lot of homage to that, but adds some nice details like these Onward G2 claw pieces for shoulder pads. They are bulky in nature, so yeah, it makes sense for Bulk because it's a bulky piece, I think if you can get away with a pun like that with a MOC, it's worthwhile doing. I mean, if a character's called Bulk, they've got to be bulky. You wouldn't expect Bulk to be a skinny, scrawny little dude, would you? Unless it's a joke. I don't know, you know what I mean. But that's a nice inclusion of that piece there. It works very nicely with the overall aesthetic of this MOC. But what I want to talk about is the frame. There is a picture here that shows the underlying structure of this MOC, and there's some cool stuff that we can learn here. I love the arm design here. The fact that they have specifically built in an area so that you can really add armor onto the lower arm makes sense. And, obviously one of the good things about a frame is you can easily translate it to other MOCs. If you wanted to recreate this yourself, at least with this specific design, there's a lot of room that you can play with on the arm. So maybe if you want to have a MOC that has a lot of weapons on their arm, you can have all these different attachment points there, and you can really play with whatever kind of weapons or gauntlets or other unique designs the arms could have. So it's nice that some extra attention has been paid to there on this frame. I also like the fact that there is connection points on the backpack here on the back of this MOC because, like we saw here, those form the shoulder pads that I was talking about before. But again, if you were to use this frame for other purposes, those could easily be used to branch out and put wings or shoulder cannons or some other kind of weird, interesting backpack design. Or you could even take some elements of that off and just have those Horde connects exposed there and then use it to branch off and build like a backpack design. It doesn't even need to have anything like sticking out or additional limbs or other craziness. It could just be used to give some justice to a good old back and make it look a little bit more exciting and interesting. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. It's always nice seeing good frame for how a MOC was built. And it's nice to see that a lot of prefab limb pieces are being used here, but in certain areas the detail is cranked up a few notches there, so that there's a lot more room for customization there. So it's a relatively easy frame to recreate yourself if you want to. Nicely done. Let's move over now to a mock called Ferno 1.0 CCBS plus bike. That's how we spelt Ferno in the messaging there. Don't at me. And this is by Generic Soda. So this certainly seems to be an update or a reimagining of the old Ferno bike set, which is still one of my favorite Hero Factory sets. The idea of a hero or even a villain on a bike is still a really exciting concept to me. So nice to see it redone with a really bold and striking color scheme of purple and orange together like that. That's super cool. I love the fact that the Nex 3.0 mask has been integrated into the front of the bike there. The idea of the bike having some nice detailing to it is something you can see in the real world with actual bikes. So nice to see that translated onto a Hero Factory bike here. It works really nicely. And I do also like the fact that this is a bit more of a crazier color scheme for a bike. There's something about it that still kind of reflects Ferno nicely and just looks cool. And why not? Play with some weird, crazy colors for your vehicles. You can get away with it. I also like seeing Ferno 1.0 here, but giving him CCBS limbs. There's something nice about seeing those 1.0 characters with a lot more articulation, slight change in size and stuff, and yeah, it's just exciting. You know, CCBS is a system that I really enjoy playing with and really enjoy seeing, and I still really like the aesthetic of the majority of those 1.0 heroes, so seeing the two fused together is very nice. Chef's kiss. Mwah. But yeah, a really nice take on the Ferno bike set here, or at least a bit of a deviation from the original, but still playing with some awesome concepts that were introduced in the first wave of Hero Factory. Let's move over to the final mock. This is by Deka Corridera, and this is Jolt Falcon. Cool name. What I like about this is some of the distribution of colors here. The fact that there is some silver armoring on the shoulders as well as on the lower legs there. To me, that looks like specific armor that you probably would need if you have a jetpack like that. Because if you're, falling over or banging into a wall while you're using your jetpack, yeah, having armor there might be helpful so you don't hurt yourself too much. So it's nice that they've specifically blocked out those silver colors in a specific way to reflect that. That's very smart color blocking there. It's also cool that this mock has a jetpack. I kind of touched upon that in the previous episode, didn't I? But I love a good jetpack, and I think it works really nicely with Surge. Here's another mask story for you. There's a bit of story time in this episode today. I remember when I first saw the Surge mask, obviously it's for my self-mock Cossy, and I use it as the logo for this channel and stuff, but I always felt that it had a bit of a high-flying, supersonic speed kind of look to it. I mean, obviously, Surge is Surge. There's the electrical quality to it, and certainly the mask has kind of like thunderbolts and things through it, or that kind of aesthetic at least, which I think lends to that in some sense. But I remember back in, 2010, 12-ish, me and a few other builders had this group on mock pages, and we were discussing, if each of the Hero Factory masks were Bionicle masks, what would their powers be? And also picking out different masks from the Bionicle lexicon that didn't have powers, like Hydraxon's mask and stuff, and be like, well, what would that power be if it did have a power? And I remember I put forward the suggestion, because that's what I had with the old lore for my self-mock, was that mask was for supersonic flight. So if you put it on, you could be like Superman, you could fly really fast, sort of thing. And yeah, I remember people being like, that's a cool idea. It makes sense for the mask. And that was a lot of the justification we had with picking each one of those out, was it's got to kind of reflect the look of the mask in some fashion. It couldn't just be like, gosh, the power of ice cream eating. It'd be like, well, that doesn't really fit with the lore of the world, and two, it doesn't really make sense with Ferno's mask or whatever. I wish I could tell you some of the other masks we came up with. The only one I can remember was the Hydraxon mask, which someone was saying that it's the mask of, it was Callum Modifier. He was saying it was the mask of density. So you had vision powers. You can make yourself really light or really heavy and use that to your advantage. That's really cool. And again, I think it kind of fits the look of the mask to a degree. But hey, maybe that's something you could think about yourself now. What other mask powers could the different Hero Factory masks have? And maybe you could use them for your Bionicle mocks and give them those cool Bionicle powers. Or why not have the Hero Factory characters have mask powers and make it more like Bionicle? Why not? That's fun too. But long story short, what I was trying to get at there is I think that mask surprisingly fits this sort of high-flying aesthetic very nicely. For some reason, it's just cool. It's also nice to see the 1.0 torso here in action on a larger frame here, because kind of similar to the previous MOC we saw before, it just works. Ironically, I feel like most of the pieces on those 1.0 heroes translate beautifully to larger, stockier, bigger builds, even though originally they were very small. Obviously, you got to do it in clever ways and stuff like that so that it fits with the rest of the design, but they naturally lend themselves quite nicely, as we can see with this MOC here. So yeah, all in all, a really nice dynamic look to this character. It's well built, that's for sure. Thank you very much. That's it for HF Feb this year. Hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, like I said, stay tuned for even more HF stuff coming out soon. Check the links in the description to see more from these builders. Check out all of their social media, see the other stuff that they've done. They'll very much appreciate it, and I'll appreciate it too. I want you to spread the love and let them know what you think of their stuff. Additionally, in the description is links to my own social media, so if you want to see the stuff that I've got going on over there, you can check that out, like my Patreon for some bonus content if you're interested. There's Q&As and podcasts and all sorts of goodies over there waiting for you. Otherwise, happy building. Bye for now. I'll see you next time.